So what are the biggest misconceptions parents have and eye care professionals have about myopia today?
Parents and even optometrists do, because I have a wonderful colleagues. Without my amazing colleagues that refer their patients to me, okay, love would not be today.
What was your reaction? Because I know sometimes glasses itself can cause so much panic and it has a lot of stigma around it. How do you deal with that?
We need to understand that children are very sensitive. One word that you can say can have an impact to them. And like you said, like kids, can worry a lot. And you want to be very careful on how you word things. And in this case, how I answer the question.
What about our extended colleagues? What about healthcare profession overall?
Well, I don't have the exact number, but about 48,000 something optometrists in the US. And then if you look at the statistic, only 10% of optometrists are actively doing myopia management. So that means we have less than 5,000 doctors. That's the only way that we're going to have a true impact.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Nerdy Optometrist, a podcast channel for all things eye care, and this is your host, Ukti. Before we dive into yet another episode, don't forget to follow my channel and catch all my episodes on your favorite platform. Our guest for today is someone who has already been on this channel. She's a true nerd, and it's a pleasure to have her back. Yes, we have Dr. Glenda Aleman, who has been on our channel before, and when she joined us last time, we talked about power of determination, resilience, and how to build a specialty practice. We also talked about joining a journey and stepping out of a comfort zone and making sure that you're able to build new opportunities and not just waiting for one. But today's episode is going to be special. This one is going to be a Women's Day special episode. We're talking about how her personal success is now also contributing into community impact. For those who have not known her, I'll be dropping her previous episode in my description below. But let me do a quick introduction of Dr. Glenda. She is my favorite person and a very close friend, so this is going to be a fun episode. She's an internationally recognized myopia management and orthokeratology specialist, educator, entrepreneur, and now a nonprofit founder. I don't know how she does it, but she does it all. She's the CEO and founder of iSmart Vision Care and OK Love, a myopia control expert, and has dedicated her career to advancing early intervention and education around childhood myopia. Beyond clinical practice, Dr. Glenda has become a global advocate for myopia awareness, working with industry leaders and educating doctors worldwide. And now she's expanding that mission even further with the launch of Myopia Brighter Futures Foundation, BFF, a non-profit initiative focused to increase awareness, education, and access to myopia prevention for children and families. I'm so excited to learn a lot more about BFF and all that she's doing in this episode as we talk about leadership, purpose, and what happens when clinical expertise turns into a movement. With that, a very warm welcome again, Dr. Glinda, and it's always a pleasure to have you on this episode.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. And as you said, it's such a pleasure to be in your podcast, because not only you are an amazing colleague and a great host, I do this all the time, and you are my favorite host, but also we are friends. And somebody's probably gonna get mad because I do go on other podcasts. But just like my foundation, you are one of my BFFs. And the reason why I want to start saying the reason why I chose the name is because I wanted something that really reflected my personality. I'm a very loving person. I'm very friendly, but also I wanted something that was very catchy and easy to remember. And it really highlighted what we are focusing about, which are young kids and teenagers. And I felt that that name was very relevant to them. And it reflects that this organization is focused on helping children and young adults.
Absolutely. And I know when you just told me this on a casual conversation, it did stick with me. And that's how I don't even call it Brighter Futures like Myopia Brighter Future Foundation. I already call it BFF. And it works so well with your other a clinic name, which is OK Love. So I think it's all about love and care and community, what the vibe that comes from your end. So I want to understand, like, how did this shift happen from like you already have a successful practice, you have a career in education, you're doing a lot of talks and like you're a lot of initiatives, but what led to starting a nonprofit and even like having this thought in the first place?
I think every time we start something and we want to really have an impact, we have to start with the need. And as you know, there are two organizations already that are about creating awareness about myopia. One is GMAC, the Global Myopia Awareness Coalition, and the other one was the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control. GMAC focuses more on raising awareness among industry. It's a lot of research based, great education that is going around for industry leaders and focusing on helping in a more global scale. The AOMC, which is a great organization, which I'm very proud to be an advisory member of the board as well, focusing on providing information and raising awareness to optometrists. So both of those organizations are doing a tremendous job and a very important role in the industry. The lack was in that nobody's doing anything to advocate and to raise awareness among the communities, among the parents and the patients, which is where we need most of this awareness to be on. So that was the need that I saw when I decided to do something about it. And I always say whenever I speak that I learn from my patients. I learn from my patients and I learn from the parents. And truly was the moment that I knew I wanted to do something like this was after, one after another, parents kept saying, Dr. Aleman, nobody knows about this. I didn't know about this until, the other doctor referred me to you. And I'm so grateful that they did. And parents just kept telling me, all of the parents always ask the same question. Why doesn't anyone knows about this? Nobody's talking about it. And they always come and tell me, I'm like your public announcement person. Like I'm always telling all my friends about it. And I would tell the parents, I really need you to keep doing that. Please keep spreading the word. But then I realized that, we really need to do something more organized. And that's where the idea came about. Now, you did ask me when was the exact moment that I knew I wanted to do this. And it would not be fair if I didn't mention another one of my BFF, which is Dr. Rashid Tahar. So Dr. Rashid Tahar is a great, world-renowned retinal surgeon. He is just incredible. He is one of the small network of doctors that I work with. And with him, he's like my business mentor. We're great friends, and he's like a business mentor. And we would meet regularly to go over our goals and share common ideas and just really brainstorm and do what mentors do and help each other out. He would be like, hey, I'm doing this with my company. I check. What do you think about this? How do you think optometrists will receive it? And he would be like, okay, what's your brain cooking? What any new ideas you have? And we will sit there and just chat. And one day he's like, okay, well, what is the biggest problem for myopia? And I said, it's the lack of awareness. And he was like, well, why don't you do something about it? And I was like, you know what? You're right. I will. And he was like, okay, let's do this. So actually, that was the precise moment. I know we were in a very small cafeteria the day I went to see his IQ check. It's like a kiosk that is an AI based. It reads. Can we edit this part? Because I don't know how to explain it, but it's basically they take a retina image and then they uses AI to diagnose problems with the patient's visual health. And I was there seeing that. We met, we had lunch, and then after that, that's when the idea came out.
So a great shout out to your BFF who helped you kind of take action. I'm sure this idea would always be there in the background that I want to do something for the awareness, but you definitely sometimes need that push from your friend, your mentor, or someone to be like, hey, you can do something about it because you've been already talking about these things. You're already a renowned expert in this space. So I'm sure that this was definitely a moment or the push you were looking for. And I'm hoping the same that comes out from this episode for people who are listening to you will be encouraged and inspired to do something of for their own as well. So when we talk about, like, there is lack of awareness and we are aware about it. We know that, at least it's getting better, but it definitely is not at the stage where we would like it to be. So based on your experience, what are the biggest misconceptions parents have and eye care professionals have about myopia today?
It's just a little bit of myopia. He doesn't need myopia management yet. I think that's the biggest misconception that parents and even optometrists do, because I have a wonderful colleagues. Without my amazing colleagues that refer their patients to me, OK Love would not be today. We really depend on me educating my colleagues in my community and them believing in what I'm doing and referring their patients and trusting their patients to me. The biggest misconception or the biggest questions they always ask is like, when should I send the patient to you? It's like I have, sometimes they're amazing clinicians. They really just don't know when the child needs to start myopia management. And I think that we need to, I always say it when I lecture, I'm grateful to get these patients when they are -6 and -8, but I love it when I get a patient that is a pre-myopic patient. When we have a 6-year-old who has less than +1, that's when we need to be alert and we need to be doing something about it, because we can have a serious impact on the life of this child. We know that if a child is 6 years old and has less than a +1 refractive error, this child will become myopic. And this is when we should be having the conversation with the parents. We should be educating the parents. At this point, the primary care optometrist can start monitoring the patient more closely. Don't wait a year to see that patient back. And I think in general, as a profession, we need to start seeing our patients more often. We should not wait a whole year to see that patient, because in a year, so many things can happen. And in general, we're so used to like, oh, come back to your appointment next year. But for a child, a year is way too long. The recommendation I would give to any optometrist listening right now, if you're not sure, bring that patient back in 3 months and then bring them again in 6 months. That way, the best you can do or the least you can do is to keep monitoring that child very closely. And when you see that the child is changing any amount of myopia in 3 months or in 6 months, then you know that it is progressing. And at that point, you can refer the patient to a myopia management expert. I mean, now with Stellest, pretty much everyone can really practice myopia management and prescribe the Stellest. In my office, I used to say that we had like 90% of patients were in a myopia management program, but now with the introduction of the Stellest lens, I can say 100% of my myopic patients are in a myopia management treatment.
I think that's wonderful. And I think that's great in terms of education and, like, your shout out that sometimes it's just the early intervention is the key. If you start late, you might not be able to help the patient or that child as much as you would like to help. So thank you once again for bringing that piece of advice back in front of all the listeners and making them feel more confident that even if you're not sure, just watch them closely. It might be hard to communicate things to the parents sometimes because they're so used to be like, yeah, let's see your child once in a year. But that's not for the kids. It could probably be for adults, but for kids, you want to watch them closely and monitor their progress. So I think that's a great piece of advice. Now,
Another misconception I think is that, which I'm pretty sure you're aware of this, that myopia is just a refractive error. And I had an experience just 2 days ago in clinic, and I just came up with something, and I'm like, okay, there's something that we need to do. Maybe we need to change the name of myopia to something more memorable that patients will think, okay, this is serious. For some reason, they don't associate myopia with or nearsightedness with being a serious disease. So get this one. The patient came in for 2 years. She hasn't been in for an eye exam. She came in, she had an eye exam, and she said, doctor, last doctor told me that my daughter has astigmatism. How is the astigmatism doing? And they all remember astigmatism. This child was minus 475 with minus a quarter diopter of cylinder. And all they remember from the exam, from the previous exam 2 years ago, was that she had astigmatism. And so now I'm on a mission to, to come up. I'm like, maybe we need to change the name of myopia to make it sound more like a disease. But that is the other misconception, is that myopia is just a refractive error. And we need to start treating myopia as a disease. Interestingly enough, when I told the parent and the child, no, your child has a very small amount of astigmatism, that is not my concern. My biggest concern is the amount of myopia that she has. The follow-up question from this 11-year-old girl was, is that a disease? And we need to understand now that this generation that we're having, Generation Alpha, they're so smart.
Yeah.
I mean, they have, information literally at their fingertips. And when they come to see you, they probably have already done some research. They go online. If my own daughter says, Mom, you need to take me to your office and give me an eye exam, I think I have astigmatism. And that's something that we need to be aware of, because children are really smart. Whenever they have a symptom, they're going to go and ask AI what it is that they have. But my point is that maybe we need to recategorize myopia, come up with a name that it sounds more like a disease.
But I have a follow-up question on that one, and I think you did highlight a very important point that we need to kind of treat this as a disease and not just like a condition where you just wear glasses and you're fine. Things are changing. People are more educated. I want to say when you said yes, or I don't know what your answer is, when that kid asked you, is this a disease? Say if you say yes, it is a disease and we need to treat you. What was your reaction? Because I know sometimes glasses itself can cause so much panic and it has a lot of stigma around it. And now, when you're saying it's a disease, it's going to increase. Like, I just want to understand maybe that patient or in general, like, what is the reaction and how do you deal with that?
That's a very important point. You have we need to understand that children are very sensitive, and one word that you can say can have an impact to them. And like you said, like kids, can worry a lot. And you want to be very careful on how you word things. And in this case, how I answer the question. Luckily for me, and I'm not saying you have to have kids in order to handle this really well, but I do think that in my case, being a mother of 5 children and knowing how my kids think, it gives me an extra level of sensitivity. I can be more empathic with my patients. And I am very careful on how I address the issue. However, it's really important that we do address how serious it is, because if we make it seem like it's not that serious, then the patient is not going to have the same level of compliance with it. If you tell a patient who you just diagnosed with glaucoma, oh, it's fine, you're going to be fine, just put your eye drops and it's fine, that patient doesn't know the degree of seriousness of the disease, and they may or may not put their eye drops in, which is the biggest concern we have with glaucoma. And I always bring in glaucoma because we can all relate to that, and we know that one of the biggest issues we have as as a practice is non-compliance with glaucoma drops. Same thing applies to myopia, but when you do tell the patient that it is a disease, and I did answer her, and I am I love my patients. I truly love them. I have so much love and compassion for them. I always ask permission to the parents because I'm Spanish, I'm Latina. We hug and we kiss, and so I put my hand on her shoulder and I was like, okay, sweetheart, to answer your question, yes, it is a disease. But the good news that I have for you is that your eyes right now are very healthy. And if we can do something about it to prevent your myopia from progressing and getting worse, we can keep your eyes being healthy. And you don't have to worry about any of those issues that come along with myopia. And this is why we're having this conversation. So I want to tell them, yes, it is very serious, but at the same time, tell them, but the good news is that your eyes are healthy. And my whole goal in this process is to keep your eyes healthy, keeping them from getting worse. But we do have to be very conscientious in being aware on how sensitive kids are, and that this really can take a toll, on their, like, it can have a really bad impact. I have so many friends that, when they know I'm an eye doctor, they're like, oh my gosh, they were completely traumatized when they were just prescribed glasses, and for the parents, I don't know for other parents, but very specifically for Latino parents, when their child, wear glasses in their eyes, it's like, my child is not perfect.
Yeah.
And they have the guilt, and they want to know. And you can see the relief when sometimes I do touch on the genetics component and the parents say, well, I don't have it. And it's just like, you see, when the parents are not myopic, it's just like they're like, oh, so I didn't give it to you. And on the other hand, you can see when the parents are myopic, that they'll immediately turn to the child when they ask me, is this genetics? And I said, unfortunately, yes. And they're like, oh my God, well, I have it. And then they turn to their kid and they're like, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. So there is a lot of psychology around myopia. And I mean, anything really, but myopia is so significant because vision is such an important, one of our most important senses. And all our patients are very sensitive to that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I can relate to the fact that this happens with, I would say, like an Indian and an Asian culture, that getting glasses is like one of the stigmas around that. It's getting better, but then the first reaction is like, oh my God, my child has glasses, or they have to. Like, that's the reaction of the parent that the kid has to encounter, even if it's coming from a good place or a good heart. They don't want the child to experience the same difficulties probably they had when they were growing up, because the technology and science was not far advanced like it is today. But the first thought is like, oh my God, why does my child have glasses, and like, how do I fix it? That feeling of fixing it makes it feel like it's a disease or something that they want to avoid, and they don't want to even face it at times. So I definitely agree. There's a lot of misconceptions, stigma. There's a lot of thoughts around it, which we need to gradually fix it, in the sense where we, through education, through having safe space for them to talk about it, having them awareness about these alternatives that are now available. And that's the idea, is to make sure that they have healthy eyes, versus like how perfect they look with or without glasses. I think we really need to start focusing on the overall growth, versus just some idea on like how beauty is without glasses but not with glasses.
No, but I do want to touch on what you just said, because you mentioned how, parents compared to how their experience was when they were young and where we are today. And this is where, if you are a myopia management expert and you're not fitting Ortho-K, you're missing a huge opportunity, because so many parents come to me, and when I tell them about Ortho-K, they get so excited and they're like, oh my God, like this is the parent saying, quote, like, they will say something that makes so much sense, because all these years I always ask myself, how come we can send rockets to the moon, we can have a cell phone, they can take pictures, they can do everything, and we're still wearing glasses to fix our vision? And so if you're not introducing Ortho-K, if you're not talking about Ortho-K, you are missing out in such a huge opportunity, because parents sees Ortho-K as new technology, even though we all know that it's not really new, but they do see it as an advancement. They do see it as technology. They do see it as something incredible. So hence, why my office name is OK Love, because as you can see, I am very biased and I do love Ortho-K. But parents do too. And also, you do mention the vanity, and that is a reality. When you think about it as a parent, we want our kids to be perfect. That's why, like, I'm so, I would say, patient with other kids, but with my kids, I'm like, no, you cannot do that. And then, my kids sometimes, they point it out and they're like, Mom, you wouldn't talk like that to your patients. But I'm like, no, but you're my child. We expect so much from our kids, right? It's like another kid is playing around, doing something, sleeping. You're like, okay, fine. Oh, just leave him. But my kids, I'm like, oh no, you gotta be perfect. You gotta do this. And that just is how it is for every parent. So when you have a parent whose child has poor vision and now they have to wear glasses, they see as they have a child who is not perfect. I'm not saying every parent, but a lot of parents see it like that. And when we give the opportunity to this parent to give their child their vision back and to be able to see that child without glasses, it's amazing. This is something that is priceless. The reaction that you see on their faces, just the same girl that we were talking about earlier with the minus 475. When I told them about Orthokate, they were like immediately signed up. They were like, oh, absolutely, I wish I knew this about this before. And the mother, she's Latina, and she was like, "Oh, mi amor, you're gonna look so beautiful without your glasses." And it's like, I love glasses, nothing wrong with glasses, but this is every parent loves to see their child awake. She even said, "You were born without glasses. This is how you're supposed to look. You were not born with glasses." So it's just when this was happening, I was like, I need to talk about this.
No, I agree, and I can relate to all these situations that you might be facing. Like even with glasses, even the contact lenses, right? When you start introducing them, not just myopia or orthokeratology, but in general, when a kid starts wearing contact lenses in teenage, like that's what the conception was, that you start wearing contacts a little later in your age. The parents would feel like, now you look like how we expect you to be, a little more perfect. And then LASIK came in and people were like, wow, let me get rid of glasses. Even though, there are some, initially when it came up, we were all hesitant. It had at risk, you're touching a healthy cornea, but then LASIK, as the technology advanced, it became the new normal. And I think that's how we should think about myopia, that myopia management at a very early age should become the new normal. Like parents should not be discovering by one or two doctors, but it should be like they should be asking about it. What about myopia management? What about orthokeratology? Or like, the drops, and like what are the other treatments available? I think we need to spread that awareness, that it becomes, not everybody knows about LASIK and like vision correction. Why don't everybody know about myopia management? I think it's our job to kind of step forward and make that a new normal in the narrative that we talk to our patients.
Definitely.
So I'm going to shift a little bit about, like, as a female founder, you already have your practice and now you're going into this unique space of nonprofit. So can you tell me, like, how does it work? Like, what are the steps that you need to take into getting into this advocacy of being a nonprofit leader? How is it compared to being clinic owner, right? Like, can you tell me a little bit about these nuances, and what are you taking from your clinical practice to your nonprofit? What are the new skills you are learning? So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Nonprofit is a whole different world. And it is very complicated, and it's taking a lot of work. As I mentioned earlier, when I started the initial conversation, I had Dr. Rashid Tahar working with me. We came up with the name together. We came up with the initial mission and vision of the nonprofit. I was so excited to have him being part of it, because having an ophthalmologist along with an optometrist really gave it, I think, more validation, and the outreach was going to be greater. Sadly, he is really busy having his own company, and he could not be as involved in this as I wanted to. I still hope that he will be involved and part of this in some capacity. But like I said, we started this together, and I wanted to give him credit. This is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it's very delicate. There's a lot of nuances. And to give you an idea how much work it is and how complicated it is, and I don't know anything about nonprofits. I had one vision, I had the mission, I knew I wanted to do something about raising awareness, but I did not know anything about nonprofits. So I had to like kind of get out of my comfort zone again, which, I guess I like doing that. When I start to get too comfortable, I'm like, oh, this is too boring, and I got something, get into more trouble. And I actually founded, incorporated a nonprofit back in November of 2024. And because it takes a whole team, I cannot do it alone. It took me all this time to go back. I had to take a step back and realize, okay, I'm not ready to do this as much as I wanted to do it. I realized that I wasn't ready and I needed to take a step back. I also was having, some dealing with some personal stuff on my end. And I kind of took the year of 2025, which I'm really glad that I did, for self care, for, working on grounding myself. And sometimes, like you said, I'm doing so much and you lose track of the person, like your little person, um, your inner self. And that's what I was doing last year. But also I was not ready to take off with the nonprofit. I needed a lot of help. So I can say now that I'm so happy for the team that we have. And again, it always take nobody can do anything alone. You ask me, how can I do this? And it's because I'm blessed in my life to have my kids are great. They support me 100% on everything that I do. And I got to start with that because being a mother, one of the challenges is trying to juggle. We don't balance, but we're trying to juggle the family life, trying to show up for your kids, trying to be a good professional, be a good doctor, be a good friend, and everything else that comes along with being more present in my family life. And so I did have to take it. It came with a lot of challenges, but now, and what I would say is before you do a nonprofit, you have to have your mission very well defined. You have to have a good vision. It has to be something that is truly a need in the community, as we know that there is a great opportunity. You mentioned before, myopia is a global crisis. And I think we are failing to see the impact that this is going to have on these kids, in the future. When I have my patient, I see the future surgeon, having visual impairment when he's 45. You don't want to have a neurosurgeon who is going to be 2060, it's going to have vision impairment by in the prime of their career. And this is the reality. And sometimes I do something about it because I get frustrated and I'm like, can't you see that this is what's going to happen? I had a 44-year-old patient who had bilateral retinal detachment out of nowhere just because he is a -6 myope. And this is the reality. So we do have in our hands a global crisis. There is a huge need for this. It all has to start with awareness because every single parent, when they come to me, they said, I wish I knew about this years ago. I wish my doctor told me about it. And what I will tell all doctors, it's that parents are asking when they come to me, why my doctor didn't tell me anything. I've been seeing this doctor for 5 years. This doctor has been seeing my daughter since she was 6 years old. Why did they have to wait until now to tell me? The other question that parents are asking me, and it puts me in a very difficult situation because I love my colleagues who are sending these patients to me. I want to be a good colleague, but also I have to be truthful to the patient. And when they ask me, could this have been prevented, doctor, if we started this treatment earlier? It puts me in a very tough spot, and I have to literally come up with a way of saying being truthful to the patient without having to say something bad about my colleague. And I said, unfortunately, a lot of my friends, a lot of colleagues just don't have the information. They just maybe they graduated before I did, and this was not being taught in optometry school, and that's the reality, and that is the sad part. So yeah, so definitely a lot of challenges, but I would say that all has to start with having a purpose that really is going to have a positive impact on the community, because once you have a clear purpose, you're really filling in a need, people will support you. And I can't wait to tell you about the team that we have for the nonprofit, because I think that's really what is going to make this organization so unique and so different. So yes, I can talk all day. We can talk about this all day long.
But I am really excited and I'm really looking forward to all the amazing thing this nonprofit is going to bring to the community and to the patients and spread the word, spread the awareness, and be like the source where people can go in not just for information but also to support myopia management. And I think you did tell me this offline. I think this was a very great thing how things started. Even the first time when you mentioned about it is the fact that people who wanted to gift you something on your birthday, is ask them to kind of contribute to that nonprofit. That talks a lot about who you are as a person and how much you care about myopia and myopia management. So I think that's a great thing. I will be adding the link in the description for people who want to check it out or learn more and connect to Dr. Glenda to kind of contribute, support, and learn about how we can all as a community, as an eye care professional, be more out there and support myopia management for all the future of our patients. So I'm really excited about this.
Yes, me too. And this is basically how I got started. I met this doctor, he's a psychiatrist, and I met him at a networking event. We went to another healthcare professionals event and we sat down and we were talking about his goals, my goals. And when I told him about this, he got so excited about it. And he mentioned it a couple of times. He was like, I really like what you are working on and I want to be part of it. Let me know how I can contribute. He even volunteered. He said, if you have a patient who needs that treatment and cannot afford to pay the patient, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to cover the cost of the treatment. So that just let me, like see how much people, there's so much people out there who wants to help, who wants to do something. There's people who have resources and they want to have an impact on the community and they don't know where to donate or how to make an impact. Luckily for me, this Dr. Aubrey, he he was the one. We followed up after a networking event. We went to dinner and we were going over again our goals. This was in December. And I told him, he's like, okay, how is your nonprofit going? And I told him, I want to start that in 2026. So he was like, okay, let's do this, Glenda. I really want to do this with you. I have to say, first it was Rashid Tahar who was like, okay, let's do something about it. And now it took Dr. Aubrey when he was like, let's do it, put like that extra push, that extra pressure that I wanted. And I told him, okay, next time we meet, we're going to be talking about your involvement in the organization. And I'm proud to say that he is the secretary of the nonprofit. So we have a psychiatrist as part of this. We have a registered nurse. I had one parent. So the parent of a new patient that was referred to me, when she came to me, when she came for her follow up, she was so happy with Orthoke, but she was also saying, Dr. Aleman, why is nobody knowing about this? Like, I didn't know about this. By the way, her child has really high myopia. She's like -10 already. And this was one of the parents who was asking a lot of questions, but she was like, somebody needs to do something about it. She's like, where can parents go to find out more information? And I was like, you know what? As a matter of fact, I'm working on something and I would love for you to be part of it. So she is also a board member. So we have a parent, we have a registered nurse, we have an optician, we have a psychiatrist. And I really wanted to have a diverse group of board members because the more diverse, the registered nurse is already make plans for me to go to the hospital to educate the physicians about it. And the other night, she came over for my birthday and she was just telling everybody how she got into an argument with a NMD about myopia because he was like, oh, that's just, you just wear glasses, that's it. And now we have this nurse fighting with this MD trying to educate him on myopia management. And she was like, you need to come to the hospital. I'm going to set up a meeting and I want you to come and talk to all these physicians because they do not understand. They don't know anything about it. And so I'm really excited for everything that we're going to do because we have a great diversity in our group. And I think when we have the greater the diversity, we can have different perspectives. Everybody has different points of views. And I think it's just going to make the organization better.
I agree, and I love how diverse your panel is. in terms of like, making sure that we are not just focusing and talking within our community. I think that's one of the things that sometimes we tend to do is like we just talk between eye care providers. Like we know we're talking about it, but what about our extended colleagues? What about the healthcare profession overall? And not just eye care. We could be talking about the latest technology within the eye care community. But if it doesn't reach the primary care physicians, right, who are talking to the patients for the first time, if it doesn't reach out to the other practitioners, it might not get its impact, and it won't start with educating the patients and their parents early on. So I really love the way you have been able to reach out to different people and excite them to be part of this mission and your movement. And I'm so glad that we're spreading outside eye care. I think that's the key.
Yeah, we're too small. If you think about it, there's like what? I don't have the exact number, but about 48,000
Yes.
something optometrists in the US. And then if
Yes.
you look at the statistic, only 10% of optometrists are actively doing myopia management. So that means we have less than 5,000 doctors
Mm.
doing myopia management actively. So we need to get out. We need to
Yes.
get out of optometry. That's the only way that we're going to have a true impact in the community as we need to. And that is the mission of my BFF, Myopia Brighter Futures Foundation. It is to spread the word about myopia, create awareness among parents, schools. We're going to go to elementary schools and middle schools to educate school nurses, the teachers, which are the people who are really, they are the first ones to identify that the child is having a
Yeah.
problem, usually the school teacher. And so I think that is something that we are missing out in optometry. The next member, I hope to be a school teacher so that we can penetrate that segment of the community. And the other part of the foundation is that we do also want to give access to treatments to parents and patients who cannot afford the treatments.
I think overall, the more I'm learning about this, the more excited I'm about it, and I'm hoping that someone who's listening to this episode would definitely reach out to you and would like to be part of your foundation and your movement. And I think as a community, eye care community, we should be supporting these kinds of initiatives that is going beyond eye care and helping the generation, like who's going to be the future. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm really looking forward to see how things unfold. And if you're not already following Dr. Glenda, please, please, please reach out to her through LinkedIn. I'll be dropping that link in the description. She's a wonderful friend, a mentor, and a colleague to learn from all things eye care. It's not just myopia, even like patient management, how to talk to patients, how to kind of start something like this. She's doing into myopia. You might be interested or excited about something else, right? But it's all about spreading the word, helping the patient. I think the goal at the end is helping the patient. So how can we make that more impactful? I always think about like, how everybody now knows about using sunscreen when they step out. Like everybody knows like 10-step night care skin routine and like 5-step morning skin routine and everything in between. I think that's how it should be about vision care and eye care. It should not be like you see a doctor once a year or twice a year. I think there's a lot of scope that we have to educate our patients, educate people out there in all the domain, because as we all know, like almost 70% of our learning is through eyes. And if we don't take care of our eyes, we're really impacting our knowledge and how we see the future. So really excited to see things that you're putting together.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. We really have so much fun, and I think that we should share how challenging it was just to do the episode, but we did it.
Now that we have spoken a lot about your mission and vision, I'm going to dive into a game segment, which is this or that, but this one is more future vision edition. So it's going to talk about eye care and myopia. So are you ready for this?
No, but let's do it.
All right. So it's a simple question. It's a simple game. I'll ask you two questions. Let me know what's your preference. The first question is early screening in every school versus universal insurance coverage for myopia management. What would you want to happen today?
Early screening.
Early screening. Technology innovation or parent education?
Oh, that's a tough one. They're both important. Oh my goodness. It's just like I don't think you can choose between one or the other. They're both really important because if we have the technology, which we do, for example, in myopia, we have great technology, but without having the parents educated about it, we really cannot, cannot do it. So I think on this one, I have to say I'm gonna choose both.
Both? Okay. AI driven diagnosis or a lifestyle behavioral change, like kids going outside?
Well, definitely, we know that outdoor is very, very helpful, especially when kids are younger. It's really important that they spend more time outdoors. So I'm going to go with that. I know AI is here and it's here to stay and it's coming. But right now, I think being outdoors is really important.
Training more specialists or educating general optometrists?
The education to general optometrists is really crucial because they are seeing 90% of the patients. And then from there, if they are well educated, that they are going to be the conduit to send these patients to the right specialist.
Love it. Research funding or public awareness marketing?
Public awareness marketing. Again, they're both important and we are doing the research. There's always somebody funding the research. That always it like boggles my mind. Like, yes, there is so much in research, but how do we make that reach the public? So I'm going to advocate for public awareness.
And last one, industry partnership or government policy changes?
I think on this one is both. We both. I mean, our school system is a huge part of the problem, and we cannot address the problem without our industry partners. So on this one, I cannot choose. Both are really important.
All right. With that, I think we have learned a lot about what the future vision should look like and what things we need to change today to have a better future tomorrow. What is your final takeaway message before we end this episode?
That we all have a part in myopia management, and it starts with early education and early intervention. And as always, I want to say that my word for myopia, and I encourage everyone to come up with one word that describes myopia to them. My word is power, because myopia gives me the power to have an impact on the community, to help each and every one of my patients. So I'm translating that power into you so that you can feel empowered to help your patients as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Glinda. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to talk about all fun things that you are coming up and to support the community within the eye care and even outside eye care. And of course, we have to mention the struggles we had to get on this episode, but I'm finally happy that we were able to complete the recording. With that, have a wonderful day ahead. And thank you once again to be
Thank
part of the
you. Thank
Nerdy
you so much.
family.
Thank you for having me. Bye.